Welcome to the Geekscape Book Club. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Merry Marvelites to each and every one of you out here. We appreciate people that join us for the live stream of Geekscape Book Club, but obviously we also just as much appreciate those of you who subscribed. If you are in the live chat, say hello and let me know if I'm sounding okay. There were some concerns. Our panel was split as to whether or not I sound as magnificent as usual. In any case, with me today are two of my favorite co-contributors, Eric Conner, and Eric is here most months for the Geekscape Book Club. How are you this fine day, sir?
I am good, ready for the holiday season with these wonderful holiday-themed titles. So thank you for giving us a little old school holiday cheer.
Yeah, I thought I thought it would be fun to do something a little bit out of the norm. We do a lot of Marvel, some DC, and wanted to get something a little different. And with us is our pal David Brody. Hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, and don't think it goes unnoticed that the one of the issues you told us to take care of and read and get ready for was a Hanukkah issue. So thank you for that.
Well, interestingly enough, in that issue, which we'll talk about second, Kitty Pryde does talk about spending her first Hanukkah away from her family, but as you're able to show, oh yeah, see, look, there's my there's my fun green screen, but it does say Merry Christmas right at the top, and so I appreciate the fact that that is one of those rare Marvel Christmas and Hanukkah issues. Life Death one is that's more of a Yom Kippur issue, if I had to guess. You know,
good work, very well put.
You like that, right? All right. I'm just trying to be the goy that shows off for a couple of my favorite members of the tribe. In any case,
it's also an Easter related by the title, Life and Death, both Easter related. So.
That's true.
Although it would be Death Life, I guess.
Yes, that's the difference. Jim Caviezel.
We will do Kaddish at the end of the episode for those who want to observe with us.
We appreciate that very much. So we are going to start off talking about the Hellboy Christmas special, which there's a way to get just the story, the Hellboy story from the Christmas special. I looked at the entire Christmas special. There's like another non-Hellboy story. There's a lot of like text stuff. So really all you need is the main story from this. Now, I believe I know the answer for Mr. Brody and myself, but Eric, had you read any Hellboy prior to this?
I had not. So this was my introduction to the comic world of Hellboy. I've seen the films, although not the multiple reboots they've been doing recently.
So you didn't see the one with David Harbour?
No, I did not. Or the newest one that I think was in the theaters for a little bit, but pretty much went straight to streaming.
Oh, that's sad to hear. I honestly didn't even know there was one after David Harbour.
Yes, Hellboy Wicked something. I'll look it up.
Yeah, Wicked Sensation. No, I'm sorry. That's the Lynch Mob debut album. I get
New Sensation.
Nice.
You like that? All right.
That was great.
nice Lynch Mob shout out. You never really know what you're going to get when you tune in.
As soon as you said the name, I thought of the band, so that was nice.
Yeah, everybody wins. What were you saying the title is, Eric?
Oh, it's Hellboy the Crooked Man.
Hellboy the Crooked Man.
Yeah.
All right. And the Hellboy Christmas special is I think it's a nice standalone story. In a lot of ways, it feels like how a lot of times you can watch the Doctor Who Christmas episodes if you don't even really keep up on the show, or maybe don't watch it at all. I thought that this worked for us to kind of jump in for the first time talking about Hellboy. Let me ask you first, Eric, your thoughts on the story itself.
Oh, it's great. It's like almost like a Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side, Twilight Zone kind of story. And it was very self-contained. Like it was for me, though, again, I know the lore of Hellboy. Also, I watched some of the animated show, which I enjoyed. But, I thought they did a very nice job of just, you didn't have to know very much to appreciate what's going on here. I was curious. It was more of a question for you guys. This style of drawing in this, is this normal for Hellboy? It was kind of like blocky.
That is Mike Mignola's style. And before we started, I was talking about how I was first aware of his style. He had a run on the Incredible Hulk. And then there's sort of a very famous occasion that I believe this is the only time it ever happened. The entire editorial staffs of the Incredible Hulk and Alpha Flight switched. So that led to a run that John Byrne had on the Hulk. So Mike Mignola did Alpha Flight for a while. And I think it was a little bit more rooted in reality. This does kind of give you sort of like more of like an expressionism sort of like unrealistic. Would you think that that's an accurate way to describe the art style, Mr. Brody?
Yeah, it was. It reminded me of Bill Sienkiewicz a little bit, but not as well done. Like, it was blocky and boxy, but I thought it fit for Hellboy's character and the storyline. Like the evil and the darkness, I thought went well with the way it was drawn. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to see George Perez necessarily draw it, or John Romita. I think this artwork fit his character and the mood very well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that it's very well suited, and he's in on the ground floor on Hellboy. When you're reading all the, at least anything I've seen, and again, this remains the one and only Hellboy comic book I've ever read. So my understanding is, he's kind of the co-creator of this property. Let's talk a little bit about the story itself. Eric, in the setup, I talked about how it really does lend itself for somebody who does not read Hellboy. Did you? So you probably didn't feel like you were lost at all.
Not at all. No. And, it jumps right in. It's a real specific tale. And it was, I will say it was touching, this idea of, and anytime there's a story involving a ghost that is not treated like just like a haunted house kind of story, but rather something, somewhat sad. And there was even a line in there when the girl was saying, over time, more and more of my family visited me. And that actually really landed for me. So I thought it was kind of like perfectly suited. It's a definite bittersweet Christmas tale. Like, it didn't give me the warm and fuzzies by any stretch. And I think also that idea of like Hellboy as Santa, I thought was such a great little moment where she, this dying woman, looks at Hellboy and her sort of, drug-addled dying mind thinks, oh, it's Santa Claus. And, he doesn't go over the top with the humor or the sarcasm in a way that I think made sense for this story. And I think it was, really great standalone writing with a clean beginning, middle, and end. And the last moments were pretty great with the house burning down. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare that you think this was a really well-told Christmas story where the house burned down at the end. That's there's times where just imagine It's a Wonderful Life. If
I didn't set the fire, you set the fire, Dave set the fire. Yeah, no, it was.
Zeus's paddles weren't made of asbestos. It's not my fault, Mary, what are you doing here? Yeah. What did you think?
I think he muted
himself on mute. Yeah,
or he's just mocking us, which I respect.
No, I think he is. I always respect any of that. No, we are not hearing Mr. Brody. I don't think I muted him. I do believe he has muted himself. No, Brody, don't go to the light. That's not what we were trying to tell you.
It just got so sad.
Yeah, well, that is. So. Yeah, and obviously, as I was sort of touching on, Hellboy is Mike Mignola's baby, and it seems like a part that a character and a world that he was born to create. Are you? I think we're hearing you. Yeah, we are hearing you now, Mr. Brody.
Okay. So what you didn't hear was me say every time a 3-alarm fire rings, 3 angels get their wings. So
oh my gosh! There we go. And you know what?
Yeah,
that got you 3 bells. What do you think about that?
That's 3 more angels. Very good.
It's the Christmas season. I'm being very jealous, and look. I'm being very generous. Look for a bell in your stockings this Christmas. Everybody out there, maybe you'll be lucky enough to get one. So yeah, what are some of your overall thoughts on this story, Mr. Brody?
Well, I thought it was the perfect choice to get into Hellboy because it was self-contained. Mm-hmm. Like Eric said, it ended well with the fire. There was no like cliffhanger to be continued, and it automatically set up the character for his compassion, but also his abilities and powers. And you kind of saw everything you needed to know about Hellboy, even if you didn't know anything about Hellboy, all in one episode, in one issue. So
Yep.
I liked it. I thought it was touching about the backstory on the woman, how she was a kid. She may have been on the spectrum. She wasn't treated well. They didn't do what was best for her. And, you know, she's had this life that was less than what she expected. And he basically saves her from an eternity of an awful life and gives her some hope at the end where her mother comes and gets her daughter comes and gets her. And now she can spend eternity in peace. I thought was a nice way to wrap it up. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a well-written, self-contained thing. And I'm interested now in the book of Hellboy short stories, because what they've done is they've compiled them all into a bunch of paperbacks, and now I'm hooked. So I enjoyed it that much. I'm going to read more.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely very interested in sort of seeing, you know, what may or may not come next, you know, for the character. And you know, it's definitely, it's a nice taste, as they say.
Yeah.
And, you know, they also always say the first taste is free, and or $1.99. And this story's called Christmas Underground, and you know, it's also, again, I feel like the first ever South Park Christmas special is the only Christmas story that I can think of where they descend to the depths of hell. And I think it's, you know, not quite as literal in here, but that's what he's willing to do, to go into the underworld and the afterlife and find everything out. So much appreciated for Hellboy doing that. Yeah, it's a very sweet story. And I don't know, Brody, did you feel that I wasn't too far off the mark, sort of saying that it gave me a little bit of the vibes of some of, you know, specifically the Stephen Moffat Doctor Who Christmas episodes?
As someone who does not watch and never has
Well,
watched Doctor Who, I really
I don't know who I
can't.
was thinking of. Yeah,
E-Rock, our friend E-Rock,
you know what?
loves
That's who I'm
Doctor Who.
thinking
It
of.
may have been him.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you ever want to check one out, start with
Yeah.
a Christmas episode. It's kind of the same thing.
our-
But not the
friend
one
Eric.
with the Titanic. I did that, and then I didn't watch it for years. There's one with David Tennant and Kylie Minogue, and they're on a spaceship called the Titanic. And I didn't like it, let's just say. And I didn't watch the show again for 2 years. I was just like, I don't know why people tell me this show's good. So that's a little bit of the lore behind me. Do you have any opinions about shows you don't watch, Eric?
So many that I would love to share at another time. But
okay.
you know, but also too, BBC.
Can we talk about Cop Rock, or this is probably not?
Oh, Cop Rock, I could talk about any time.
How about Guiding Light? Can we talk about the third season of Guiding Light?
I'm more of a 1958 fan. Yeah. I'm more the radio drama guy.
Yeah.
You know, but BBC also, that I love how they sort of work Christmas specials into their narrative. They do it with Doctor Who, but a couple of series, including The Office, had a Christmas episode finale.
Yes.
And I think, like, you know, we're used to seeing kind of cheesy Christmas episodes where it's clear that they filmed it in like July and everyone is like bundled up in LA in winter coats looking miserable. But I think, you know, this was a very unusual Christmas tale in terms of the darkness of it. And yet at the same time, sweet, you know, and I think they didn't try to sort of overcompensate the darkness. You know, he's not quipping, there's not quips left and right, and I like that it's just him solo. I think, like, you didn't necessarily need the whole sort of cavalcade of supporting characters in the Hellboy world for this thing to work. So I think it was, you know, just the right size, and it did make me feel like, even more so than Peppermint Mocha, this made me feel like it is truly Christmas time. So thank you for that.
Yes, I thought that, you know, I received, you know, an urgent dispatch that we need a little Christmas right this very minute. And I was like, I think Hellboy can help us. So to make sure that that is indeed what we got. So yeah, I think people should check that out, especially if you're not familiar with Hellboy, you know, much as the three of us were not. And it seems like well worth the time, the effort, and you know, there are I found it to be an entertaining and, you know, just a fun visit with a character that I'm only very loosely familiar with, I think is the best way to summarize that. So Mr. Brody,
Yes,
we also have sort of a B story that I thought would be worth our discussing for this episode of the show. And I know that, like me, you actually are at the moment, I believe you're holding the physical issue that you have. And let's see, I need to showcase the beautiful, and I do mean beautiful, uh, as I talk about the beautiful green backdrop that I have, so that I can show off without it bleeding all over the screen, that I also have mine. Eric, where's your Uncanny X-Men 143?
Let's see. I have Life, Death.
Yeah, that's
I
not going to
have-
cut it.
I have. Oh, here we go.
That's 43 issues later. Nope,
No, no.
that's not going to cut it.
So close.
No,
That's a fraud.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Ready.
Brody can't hold his up because it's already on sold on eBay. So
No, not yet. Not till I autograph it.
that's, you know what, that's definitely the way to do it.
As featured in Geekscape Marvel Movie Book Club. Yes.
Yeah, right, exactly. So anyway, so this is as we were talking about mere moments ago, we were saying that this is a very rare Merry Christmas story that also is a Hanukkah story. It's interesting because at one point Cyclops calls in, and he has the thought that I don't think always stuck with me in this story. And he's like, why did they leave her all alone by herself? It's not like the X-Men. Because everybody's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have such a great night out in the city. We're going to have so much fun. We're going to do so many celebratory Christmassy things in New York. Well, the young teen from Chicago spending her first holiday season away from her family, she probably doesn't want to come into the city with us, right? She's probably got a lot of school work to do.
I think it's anti-Semitism is what I'm saying.
Look, I want to tell you you're wrong. I don't know that I can. I don't know that I can.
We're going to see the tree. You stay home, Jew.
Okay.
Magneto could have really pried on it, and been like, hey,
he's the villain.
Yeah.
Notice they make him the villain.
That's true. And just imagine if he had shown up at this moment and offered her a way to start the Jewish Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, or the Brotherhood of Evil Jewish Mutants. I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
Yes, of mutants.
The minion of evil mutants.
Yeah. So, Eric, my first question for you, because Brody and I both have this considered a beloved relic of a bygone era. Had you ever read this story before?
I might have. That's the best I
fair.
could say, because this was around the time I was collecting. So
yeah,
if I dared to go into the horrifying back room of my house and look, I might find this issue. But I didn't want to risk life and limb just for one visual prop, and I have so much. Anyway,
can't even tell you the number of times that I've gone out to my office in the back of the garage and scoured through boxes just so I can hold something up. But that's okay. We know where we stand with you. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And by the way, Life and Limb was another issue of X-Men, not this one.
Yeah, no, this is not the Life and Limb Death. Yeah. Drawn by Ron Lim, though, oddly enough. So what were you holding up there? I'm sorry.
This is a Deadpool taco. So yeah, no, trust me, I do my own things for this show often.
By the way, look what the Loki sauce looks like with a green screen.
That's very cool.
I love that.
So timing wise, it would have made sense. I did read this. Price.
Let me just interject real quickly.
Please.
Okay, so this is issue 143. The issue before is the conclusion of Days of Future Past. That's 141, 143. The Dark Phoenix saga ends in 137. This is probably the greatest year and a half in comic book history that this is a part of, and it's a nice way to bid adieu to 1980, I would say.
Yeah, and also too, I think focusing in on her, and they do have references to new X-Men, this idea they're in the middle of their own kind of mini little reboot after those big titles, and I think it was smart to just give her own issue. I agree the leaving her alone was a little strange, but I think getting a point of view of the school, for the gifted youth, and her alone actually is something that is kind of neat. I actually liked watching her just sort of figure out this place, go into the room alone, to like practice her skills, and even too, they did a nice job of planting her use of the jet, which will wind up being the thing that saves her in the end. So it really nicely contains stories similar to the Hellboy one that you had us read, and one in the end of it all, I thought had a nice payoff too. Like we watched Kitty Pryde grow up a little bit, and it was its own Hanukkah miracle. She didn't need oil for 8 nights, just enough fire to light up whatever creature that is.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are so many comic book stories over the decades that will mention a character's baptism of fire on the cover. This does not say that, but that's literally what this is. This is really go ahead.
It's more of a bat mitzvah of fire. Again, I have to correct you.
You know what? You're absolutely right, and that's probably why they did not put it on the cover. They were just like, it is a bat mitzvah of fire. That
imagery feels very anti-Semitic to me, honestly. So it's good they didn't.
Well, it depends. I mean, it could just be,
lots of candles for the relatives to come up.
Here's where the problem would be: if it's a bat mitzvah and there's a fire and there's one of those roast pigs on a spit, that is definitely going to be inappropriate. That is not what should be there.
No.
Unless it's a
but if they're rich and they hire a fire breather, that's a different story.
So you think a bat mitzvah where Gene Simmons from Kiss performs and breathes fire? I think that's a great idea.
His real name is Chaim Vitz. Who else should show up with him?
And he'll do it for enough money.
That's right.
Look, let's just say there is a price tag. There is indeed a price tag. Eric, I realize that you sent some imagery to that, and your email was for both. Was there anything particularly about Hellboy? Because we can circle back in a moment.
Oh no, I think we're fine.
Okay.
Although I did notice the any Christian grave, I thought.
Yeah,
I kept thinking about you, and I'm like, yes. Did that freak you out at all? That they talked
about? Yeah, because I'm not ready to go. Let's just say, and there was some very nice imagery in here, and this idea that you thought I didn't recognize you, your Father Christmas, and that's great for Hellboy to be concerned or confused, mistaken, as it were. But as we get to the Uncanny X-Men 143 Christmas,
this I definitely want to read. Yeah, and you might have to read it because David's walking some of my POV of it, but
my bad.
Can you read it now?
It's gone. Yeah. It's as if the sun had moment. So for our radio audience members out there, our
radio,
everyone gathered around the Victrola. Give a listen.
Hello, welcome. So it's as if the sun had momentarily touched the earth, raw energy, fueled in part by Storm's claustrophobic fear of being buried alive, in part by an atatistic part terror born of subconscious racial memories of the Nagare explodes around her. I'm like, my God, that's like 70 different thoughts in one box.
Yeah.
And I read that, and I read it like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, what happened here? Like, did he run out of panels to spread this information?
Well, and this is a perfect example of a Chris Claremont panel, and it is why penciler Tom Orzechowski was really the only one who could letter his books. I believe eventually other people did, but
his gnarled wrist trying
to squeeze it. Now you could write it at a larger size and just compress it, but this was with the old pen and ink. Brody, I assume that for our conversation you revisited this beloved book, and what were some of your thoughts?
It was, first of all, it was great to see John Byrne artwork again, because we've been reading a lot of comics with new age modernized art, and as soon as I saw the John Byrne jaw lines and the John Byrne muscles and the John Byrne long hair, I'm like, yes, this is the artwork that was definitively artwork for me as a kid. And then The one thing I'll say about this panel here with Storm is it was a flashback that they never referenced as a flashback till it was over. And they said, because it happened right after Giant Size X-Men 1.
Yeah.
And when you're reading it, you're thinking it's present day. I thought that was odd that they didn't say like 6 years ago or 3 years ago or this happened. Anyway, I loved seeing the John Byrne artwork. What was weird to me as an adult now, and because time is different now as an adult, is that this did happen only a few months after Jean Grey died. Until it was retconned, but Phoenix died. Yes. It was she had only been in Marvel Comics for 14 months, but when you read them monthly, it seemed like an eternity. This comic really was an introduction to what she could do, and what her powers were, and that she could walk on air, and how she could use her brains. And it was also an after school special with I don't want to study, I don't want to do my homework. What's the point? I don't want to be in shape. What's the point? Wait a minute, I need to study. I need to do my homework. I need to be in shape.
Yeah, I need to do all these things they told me. Ugh.
This is
and
what
she was able to grow on. And she was able to think about all that as this creature was trying to kill her. I probably do need to get my steps in.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was such a, if they made this a movie, they'd have to make it in that time period because she couldn't call anybody for help because she had to dial a phone that was only in a mansion with a billionaire. They had one phone in the kitchen that she'd have to dial. There was no she should have a button that signals for help. Right? There was no. It was weird that she had no way to signal them, like a help button. She had to pick up a phone to call them, hoping that they had a phone on them.
Well, she could have definitely used. This is years ahead of the technology of Life Alert. If you remember the commercial, I've fallen and I can't get up. So I don't know in 1980 if there's really any way she could have done.
No, I fell through the floor. And
let's talk about the fact that in the early 1940s, Gotham City did have the bat signal. So yes, there probably could have been some way to do it. But how would she have gotten to it? She would have needed to get to the roof if there was an X.
The idea the Danger Room has all these things, and yet somehow it's like, okay, for an extra $10, we could put in a phone line. Nah. I think that's just
the one in the kitchen is enough. Who's going to call but telemarketers?
Well, Charlie was probably
what am I made out of money?
Well, no, Charlie's like, I'm going to talk to two people at once. No, it's fine. I just need the one phone.
He's telekinetic. He just uses his brain.
Yeah,
but not after 11. It's more expensive to use your brain after 11.
Yeah,
yeah. They didn't have rollover minutes back then, did they? Yeah.
No.
So there's a lot of issues there. So this is the final John Byrne issue of Uncanny X-Men, and it really. Kitty is just in the background. She gets introduced in Uncanny 129, which is, right at the ramp. But if you get a collection of Dark Phoenix, the first chapter in that is always her first appearance, followed by the next month by the first appearance of Dazzler. So really, they were just shooting on all cylinders. We got Kitty, we got Dazzler. Who are we going to introduce in issue 131? Nobody. But you do get the Hellfire Club. So it's again why this is such an epic story, which factored into the conversation we had a couple weeks ago over there on Marvel Movie Talk. Did you have any other specific thoughts? Well, you know what? Let's start with the elephant in the room that, and it gets referenced oh yeah, I remember from the movie. Yeah, Kitty, we all know what movie this is. This is not. This is long enough after Alien where Claremont's probably yeah, it'd be all right. Let's go ahead and tell that story in the Danger Room. It's a great story. I love it. But I think it's very important that even Kitty calls out to us yeah, we know. We know what this is. Even the first time I read this, Brody, which, I didn't read this in 1980, but, I read this in the 1980s. I was just oh, cool. This is like Alien, but, I guess when it comes out in 1980, it's well, Alien's not in the movie theater anymore. How are you going to watch it again? Just read the comic book.
Well, it's funny, Jaws came out in 1975, and in 1976, I don't have it. I could go in my garage, unlike what Eric would do. But there was a Superman issue of Action Comics, maybe, where he fights a shark man. They were capitalizing on the Jaws thing. Nice. So it's not this isn't the only example of that, of course, as you know, but I that's the first thing I thought of was this is just like when he fought a shark guy. It was like it was a shark and he had arms and he tried to attack people in the water and tried to bite Superman. And, you capitalize on whatever's big.
Wait, it wasn't a reference to when Batman fought a shark with the shark repellent in the 1960s Batman movie, which I think was never hotter than 1976, 78.
That's true. By the way, I just within the last month took my kids to see that at the New Beverly, the theater here in Los Angeles, and
wow,
the shark repellent on the big screen never gets old. So,
what about the 5-minute run with the bomb over his head?
Oh, I love that.
They just can't get rid of a bomb. Yeah, it's amazing.
That's classic.
But let's see if I can.
The newlyweds.
My old This is very. This is very, teaser of, crime drama moment, like it's very like, oh my God, we have so many Christmases yet to come. I love you so much. We'll make this one special. And the fact that the wife, Claremont makes sure to tell us that the wife lives long enough to scream.
I thought that was great that they described how quickly he died. And then the panel talking about she had just enough time to, and then the creature not only kills them but feeds on them. It was just so graphic and well written. It just, I tell you, I'm glad that that had this been issue 144, like Cockrum, it would have been such a different experience for me. Yeah, like Cockrum's a fine artist, but when you look at him back to back with Byrne, it's almost embarrassing to me. Like the square heads and the lack of definition in the bodies.
What I will say is that in both instances, you would have the consistency of the Rock that is inker Terry Austin, who literally makes everyone look better. Literally every artist looks better inked by Terry Austin.
If you look at Byrne's work with Fantastic Four without Terry Austin, you can clearly see a difference.
I don't love that work. I don't like when he inks himself. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. What were you going to say, Eric?
It's just like how dark this moment is, and I think following the courage of, if you're going with Alien, it's like, well, yeah, when we see what the alien does to John Hurt early in that film, it terrifies you for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and by the way, this issue was indeed approved by the Comics Code Authority with all this violence in there. I just want.
Well, the key, it's a wide shot, right? So you don't get in so close. You PG-13 angle, not R, or PG back then, pre PG-13.
Right. That is pre PG-13. That's true.
But the alien side of it really comes out pretty big here too, like just the whole shape of it.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
just how much it resembles. Yeah, but look, it doesn't take away from this being a great story and a great device. Look, Alien is also a great story, and it works as a perfect way to really again show us what Kitty's capable of. I did love this interaction, which is Nightcrawler tries to
calls him an elf.
Yeah, he calls him misfit at one point, which reminded me that he used to call him that. I think more of the later 80s when they're actually like really good friends. I kind of forget about the era where they all sort of hated each other to some extent.
He was ready to slice him in half for flirting. I mean, and then he has to talk himself down.
He kissed her. Nightcrawler kissed her. He deserved what he gets.
Whoa. The mistletoe. Christmas rules, bro.
Yeah, we don't have that in Hanukkah.
Oh, is that the difference? Okay.
We also didn't have a menorah in this issue because it was Hanukkah. I didn't see a menorah.
Well, he's not paying for an extra phone line. You think he's going to pay for a menorah?
To be fair, I do understand that for the week, Charlie made sure that the mansion kept kosher, so he did have that detail. It just wasn't shown there in the book. So,
I do find it interesting that. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, please.
That they show this creature with fighting Storm years ago, and then, of course, the night it decides to come back out is the one night that she's alone, right? Yeah. Like, what would 4 years went by, whatever, 5 years, however long it was. I'm going to pick this night of Hanukkah to come out and get my Kitty Pryde when she's alone in the house, in the neighborhood, and the whole. It was just that bit. That
Yeah.
was a little bit of
the wall-to-wall
kooky dink.
anti-Semitism is really apparent.
It's one of the to
Yeah.
make sure we keep this conversation sufficiently dark. It's one of the prevailing theories of the John Benet Ramsey murder. So I think that is exactly what this alien did. It's like, I'm going to hide for a while, and I'm going to wait until the youngest member of the team is there alone in the house, and that is when I can jump in. But this is a very early interaction of what by today's standards would be considered a problematic relationship. But in 1980, it was like, oh, isn't this cute? Kitty does indeed give Peter a little kiss there. And Wolverine does not try to slice anyone in half. But I think it's just because he likes Peter. But this is, I was glad you highlighted this, Eric, the Nightcrawler. Good thing you only kissed him on the cheek, Kitten.
I know.
Where else? And he'd have probably jumped in shock. I don't know what you're implying there.
Yeah.
Nightcrawler going full Paul Lynde in that moment, I think.
Could you imagine? I'm sorry. Can you imagine a Hollywood Squares with Nightcrawler? How great would that have been?
Well, he would just go to the corner that needed an X. He would just I'm up.
Bam.
Top left, bottom right, middle.
Yeah. It's like the proposed. It's like the proposed golden at bat rule that Major League Baseball is not really considering, but they're only talking about so people talk about it.
The golden square.
Yeah, this is what you had talked about earlier. That Kitty's going to call her parents, and it's like, oh, they're not home. Yeah, well, don't worry, you are going to get to see them. And
no,
I think that This was the simplest of Kitty's costumes, the first one they gave her that's used for the original X-Men. I think the skull cap wasn't necessarily the thing she needed, but she had a lot of different looks, is my point. But I know that Mr. Brody presented us with something else that we are going to talk about in a moment. But are there any other final thoughts that we have here? And Eric, I see that now I think that this is actually not Dave Cockrum with 144. I think he started with 145, the Dr. Doom cover. Is there a reason why we have the image from the next issue, Mr. Conner?
Just because you and I were such fans of Man-Thing
Yes.
in the recent Werewolf by Night that it just reminded me that I do hope we get to see Man-Thing again. On some screen at some time, because they did such a great job with his little story in that. And Werewolf by Night, I think, is along the way kind of got forgotten and pushed aside. But I think that was one of the better sort of, I don't know, doubles or triples of the Marvel universe. And they really made Man-Thing look cool, look interesting, be sympathetic, and made me want to spend more time with Man-Thing. So yeah, I saw that at the end. I'm like, first of all, I want to read that issue. Secondly,
it's a great issue. Yeah, it's by the way, it's Brent Anderson on the artwork, who is the artist of X-Men: God Loves, Man Kills. So that's he does that issue. Now, there is something else infamous about this issue that has nothing to do with the story. There is a letters page in this issue. X-Mail. At one point, they changed the name to Uncanny X-Mail, and in this issue is a letter that is published. It is written by eventual comic book writer whose work we will probably feature at some point, some of his new Avengers stuff, Kurt Busiek, who sends this amazing letter to the editor. I have a complete collection of X-Men. My first issue was number 37. Since then, I've been an avid fan of the book through the old and new teams, but number 138 is my last issue. I quit. Well, so did Cyclops. The change from the old X-Men to the new X-Men was fairly simple to adjust to because the book was still excellently scripted. But for the past 2 years, since issue number 113, I've watched the book degenerate, watched the X-Men become a perversion of what they once were, watched you twist and mangle characters you virtually created. I first decided to stop buying during the, quote, Hellfire Club storyline, but held on for sentimental reasons and a vague hope that things would get better. During the, quote, unquote, Dark Phoenix saga, I again decided to quit. but upon hearing what the conclusion would be, decided to stick around till Cyclops left. And now I can no longer justify buying the X-Men, not even to keep my collection complete. Each issue hurts too much. I love the X-Men, and if you treated them as they deserve, I would still be a faithful supporter. But until matters change, you've lost yourself a reader.
No.
And Kurt Busiek goes on to write some great stories, but I would have to say he misses the mark here. Now, not contained on the image that I found online is the response from Chris Claremont. I'm sorry you feel the way you do, Kurt. Unfortunately, one person's quote unquote dark age is another's quote unquote renaissance. So basically, what he's saying is, Kurt, go fuck yourself. Sales have never been higher. And Claremont knew that in 44 years, people like us would be saying that this is one of the greatest runs in a comic book in history. But he goes on. What you saw is a perversion of the book and its characters. Others saw as some of its finest issues in the series. We do our best to make our readers happy, a logical course of action, considering that if they become unhappy, they wouldn't read the book, and we wouldn't be here. But the way we do that is by trusting our own instincts and abilities. So long as we who produce these books, all comics, not simply X-Men, are creative humans, not programmable quote unquote robots. That's the way it has to be, for better, for worse, hopefully for better. I have never asked Claremont about this interaction, but I've talked to him enough times where I feel like this is all that's left. I really need to talk to him. It's like, have you ever talked to Kurt Busiek about this interaction? He has to. Kurt Busiek has to be walking around Marvel at some point and be like,
Oh, sure.
Hey, buddy, what's going on? Yeah, I was wrong about that. But Brody, you have this book. Did you even realize the valuable inclusion there in the Uncanny X-Men page?
Yeah. No, I did not. But I just looked it up. So I have a question for the two of you gentlemen.
Yes.
If you don't know the answer, how old do you think Kurt was when he wrote that email? That letter, not an email. Sorry, letter.
Yeah. 14. I'm not sure.
Okay, Eric.
I was going to say 12.
He was 20.
Well, someone wasn't getting laid.
He may have been 21, depending on his birthday, because he was born in 1960, and the Dark Phoenix saga was 79, 80, 80 roughly, and so he was 20.
Yeah,
he was 20. I mean, listen, a guy like that who wrote a letter like that in today's day and age would 3D print a gun, if you know what I'm saying. So
no, yeah, I mean, I think that
that's how it starts, writing a letter to Chris Claremont. But today,
he would
people
certainly start a YouTube channel. I hope that nothing like that would happen. And I'm not going to read it, but the callback is from Fantastic Four number 20 has a letters page with a letter from our visual audience can see. Bayonne's own George R.R. Martin commented on how much he enjoyed Fantastic Four number 17. So sometimes it's worth reading those letter pages because, as we've talked about on past iterations of this show, Eric,
yes,
Solo Avengers number 16 has a very, very long letter from some young man who probably
a very lonely young fella from upstate New York.
And Marvel Tales 212 has a letter from somebody who felt pretty confident that he could get his letter published if he wrote a reprint book.
This gives me hope I could find when I called into a radio show once to talk to Gorilla Monsoon. Somewhere that has to be a recording of that.
There has to be. By the way, in the live chat, our buddy Adam Hughesy, the H-Man Hughes. Holy blank, is that the Brody from the Brooklyn Boys? Thank you for noticing, Hughesy. And Hughesy,
no, it's Eric Conner. You've met me.
Hughesy, like all of us, is just counting down the minutes until we can all see Craven. So I know Hughesy is very excited for that. Nothing like in the pre-release for a movie just saying, don't worry, this is the final film in this universe that you all know. Brody, you wanted to talk about Marvel Team Up number 1, which I will happily admit I had never read Marvel Team Up number 1, and it's if you look ahead to the cover from Marvel Team Up number 2, you will, of course, realize that it's Spider-Man and the Human Torch was basically what the plan was for a little while, I don't know quite how long they stuck to it. And tell us a little bit about why you felt this was worthy of inclusion. And I'm not saying it wasn't. I just want to
at some point, you'll bring up the cover art.
I'm
But
getting it, you know, you can tell when I'm vamping. You know what it looks like when I vamp.
Oh yeah, that's why I said at some point. The original issue came out in 1972. However, I did not read it in 1972. I got this at a bookstore when I was a kid. This is the Marvel Treasury Edition, giant size holiday grab bag, right? Giant superhero holiday grab bag.
Correct.
Which I didn't realize at the time was a collection of Christmas-based stories that, although she's not featured on the cover here, Black Widow had a story, Daredevil had a story, early Avengers, Fantastic Four fighting the Hulk around Christmas time. You would not know the stories that were included based on the cover because it didn't really match up. But the first story was Have Yourself a Sandman Little Christmas. I don't know if you could see that right there. Go back a little bit.
I do see it.
It's the first page is Spider-Man throwing getting fireballs thrown at him by the Human Torch, written by Stan Lee and Roy Thomas, and penciled by Ross Andrew.
So Ross Andrew did a lot of 70s Spidey. I believe it's written by Roy Thomas. I think Stan Lee just presents it. And
Stan Lee editor. Yep, editor. Roy Thomas writer. Yes.
And man, the lingo from 1972 that they're throwing around. Stan must have been like, we got to talk to the kids, and this is what the kids talk like. I need you to make sure you do it. I don't know when he turned into Gilbert, but tell me the difference between. And that's the why Jack and I created the Aristocats. Anyway, aristocrats.
Yeah.
Hey,
it was
fella.
Interesting. It was interesting for me having I read Hellboy first.
Okay.
And then I went back and read the X-Men issue.
Of course.
And then I went back once Christian said I could talk about this. I went back and read this again. And the art style is so dramatically different. The way it's written, as Christian pointed out, is so basic. But I sent this picture because this is 1972. He had just broken up with Crystal and he was home depressed. And he was dressed like that. In fact, the whole issue he's dressed like that because as Spidey points out, he was in mourning and didn't want to put on his Fantastic Four outfit. And so he fights crime in that. Lucky for him, when he puts his flame on, you don't see that. But I loved it.
Unfortunately, did not burn that outfit when he flamed on.
Yeah. Somehow
he managed to get spot.
You know what? A little bit.
That was your background when we first got here.
Very quickly. Yeah. And I did enjoy this interaction where they're trying to steal from this lady, and she's like, "Yeah, it's Christmas. Just web them up for a little while." And I do have to point out. I do have to point out just how often African American characters would be written by the white staff at Marvel, and they would always, they would say, "No problem, brother," and you're like, "Oh, this is 1972. It's a wild time, man." Let me tell you something, brother.
So here's where it gets worse. So she does refer to Spider-Man as brother.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets even more racially tinged.
Uh-oh.
This is chronologically this page.
Keep in mind I have Husey in the chat, but I'm going to let you finish your thought.
Okay, be careful, Husey. This story is the chronological first appearance of Misty Knight.
That's Misty Knight, right?
Because in 1975 they introduced Misty Knight as a character. And then went back and retconned it and said this woman being mugged on the street was Misty Knight.
By the way, Husey does have a great point. If you want to see black characters written well, go no further than Bad Boys 2, which is one of many films covered over there on Husey Entertainment on YouTube when we discussed the stellar work of Michael Bay. I had no idea that this was Misty Knight. I mean, obviously I noticed the similarity, but I just assumed that, maybe if she had the bionic arm at this point, I would have been a little.
So I don't know. I didn't do the research to see if Roy Thomas wrote the issues where she was first introduced and then was like, "Oh, I drew a black woman 3 years ago. Let's make her. I'll just draw her the same face and the same afro."
Ross Andrew drew that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And Roy Thomas. So maybe it was Ross Andrew was like, "Oh, I think I have some old footage of me drawing a black woman. We'll just use that and we'll call her Misty Knight." So that's why I sent you that page.
No, I appreciate that. And I love the hairstyle that the Sandman has. It's the same one that Norman and Harry Osborn have. I don't know
100%.
what this style was, but you only saw it in comic books. You'd never see an episode of the Mod Squad or a movie. No one has this hairstyle.
Steven Seagal has that. Hold on. Steven Seagal has that hair now.
Okay.
Yes, the word hair loosely.
Here's what it is. It's hair. I hate to make another reference to my people, but it's the balding Jew fro cut really short. So it's got the curls.
So
right, and I don't remember if Norman Osborn was Jewish or not, but
is what you're trying to.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay. So the reason I love this, this particular issue, and it stuck out in my mind as a Christmas issue, is that Sandman appears on the beach, and then he and Human Torch, because what happens is Spidey goes to the Fantastic Four building, the Baxter building, and says, "Look, I got things to do, but the Sandman is loose. Can you guys go handle him?" And only the Human Torch is there. He's like, "No, I'm just sitting here being depressed." He's like, "Well, you're coming with me. We got to go get him." And the whole issue, they try to stop Sandman, and the Sandman the whole time is like, "Listen, you guys are being annoying. I got something to do. Leave me alone. I haven't done anything wrong." And he puts them in a trap and then tells them how to get out of it. And then at the end of the episode, if you can go back one page real quick, they capture him going into an apartment building, and he's changed into his regular clothes.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Listen, guys, you caught me. I'll go peacefully with you, but I'm here to see my mom. I see her every Christmas. I bring her a present. She doesn't know I'm a criminal. The doctors haven't told her. I don't want to ruin her. She's old. Let me just go and see her." And the heroes are like, "Okay, you know what? You got a deal. No problem." And then he goes in, he gives a gift, a little pin for his mother. And then when they come in afterwards, he's already disappeared down the sink drain. But it was touching that he was there for a good time. And then this is the last page, which I just thought was very tasteful and like, it's a Christmas movie. It's a Hallmark moment. So
yes, no, I agree. This is a very festive ending to what was really kind of a wild story to read right now. What did you think, Eric, as you read this?
Well, anytime I see team up, I always got excited in Marvel lore, and put characters together that sort of bounce off each other. And this team up's especially fun because they're both kind of snarky New York a-holes. No offense.
And just to interject, the interaction between Spider-Man and Human Torch for years is actually a really fun kind of back and forth. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, well, and it's right. It's like I'm back in the city, and that's always too what I love about Marvel is like it actually uses real places. This I didn't realize I was on the cover. I was very excited to see myself represented.
Yeah, it's nice to occasionally feel seen, right, Eric?
Always.
So this is the polar plunge beach shot. And Eric, I think the swimwear you wear is actually a little smaller than that. I think
a little closer to dental floss than
you want there to be less room for the imagination.
Listen, I want people to know what they're paying for. Now, I did have questions here. Okay, Sandman's costume for our visual audience is wonderfully terrible. Was Sandman at this time, was it his suit that turned him into sand? Because he kept talking about things he got, including one that made him hard. That was an actual quote in the script.
Okay, but that's not
help me out here.
What he meant. No, because when the character's introduced, he looks like Thomas Hayden Church in the movie. Right. He's like got the green striped shirt. I don't know what this era is. I don't know what he's wearing. I don't know why he's wearing it. Brody, you have an insight.
Yeah, this is called the Jack Kirby era of Sandman. I believe Jack Kirby, you can tell by the way it shines. And this was like a big, like the Eternals, they were all chrome and whatever. Yeah. This was a Jack Kirby costume. And that's my first introduction to Sandman. So when I saw him in the Freddy Krueger sweatshirt, a t-shirt rather, that seemed to me like, oh, he's out of costume. Because this is when I first thought of Sandman, this is the way I saw him.
Okay, so you remember him looking like this. By the way, he looks and I'm not quite finding the image that I want from Fantastic Four #1, but I mean I can share with you just how much that version looks like the Mole Man. Another Jack Kirby creation.
Oh yeah,
it's based from Fantastic Four #1. I was looking for Fantastic Four #1, but didn't have the time I wanted. So I'm glad that Brody's here to give us some explanation on that. But I had never seen him.
He had like dials on that ridiculous getup that enabled him to sort of change, and he's flattened at one point.
Yeah.
But it almost read like the suit was controlling some of that. Brody, do you remember?
It did. No,
Okay.
it did. You know what? I don't remember if it had powers or not, but now that you mention it, the buttons, when he became a wall, a brick wall, it may have been a way for him to instantly turn to those things rather than having to concentrate. I don't remember the powers that were in that suit, but the buttons definitely played a role, clearly.
Now, I assume Eric only included this because it is basically a shadow traffic report heard early in the morning on a commute to work, letting us know what the commute was like over the GW bridge. Or is there another reason you picked it?
Nah, I mean, it was just name checking. The GW was
big ups to the GW.
Big ups. Tapping Z. It was just a lovely little moment that reminds you. Again, they bring up Jersey, and the shout out to the Bridge and Tunnel crowd. Again, David.
Yeah, as a one-time Hoboken resident, I appreciate it. Now I feel seen. So
there was definitely a period of time back then, because I think when we did the Korvac saga, in one of our last book clubs, they constantly referenced local things as if everyone was from New York. Deal with it. Yeah. Even like when I said, when Captain Marvel was like, I'm on a rooftop in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, where I'm from, like, that's so local. They don't do that quite as much anymore. They keep it national, but to get that minutia of like, oh, that's not only a bridge we're going to mention. It wasn't the Brooklyn Bridge, which is the obvious one. It was the GW and the Jersey side. And I just got a kick out of that. So I appreciate including the picture.
The Brooklyn Bridge is for having your girlfriend thrown off of it, and then when you try to save her, you snap her neck. That's the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, and they had a name check to like, I don't know what I would do if I lost Gwen.
Yeah, I was actually, I'm not gonna lie, I was hoping you grabbed that image, but
I thought I had actually. Apologies if it's not there. That's a moment where it definitely gives you a pause when you read that one panel.
That just tells you that there'd been an editorial meeting that they knew what was coming. Jerry Conway wrote that, but
what year did Gwen die? Do we know?
Great question. I will look up.
77?
No, much earlier than that. Amazing Spider-Man 121. Which one day maybe
73.
Yeah, 73. So this is 72. So they definitely knew.
It was right down the road.
100% we're sure. We will have a little presentation here, a sort of incomplete presentation, just because it's hard to predict. But Husey was talking earlier about how he already has his ticket for Kraven the Hunter, singular, because no one will go see it with him. IMAX is the only way. I tried to go see it with Eric Conner, and he told me he has something better to do that night, which is actually getting ready for a procedure of some kind. So I tagged you out, and my buddy Liam McInerney is going to go with me. So So
I am so sad to miss out. You know that.
I know.
It was all I wanted for Hanukkah.
Especially because I saw a headline earlier today that said it's projected to have a worse opening than Madam Web, and I'm like, that can't be possible. It just cannot be possible.
Should we do a bet here?
You know what? That's a good idea. Let me get Husey's other comment. Sony ending their Marvelverse before Kraven is even released gives me a lot of confidence. Plus, it makes the Venom 3 ending even worse. You're not wrong about any of that, Husey, and I feel like Husey either has left us or passed out at his keyboard. It's like, I don't know.
It's 8 o'clock.
It's 8 hours.
8
o'clock on a 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. All right. So
please, in Ireland.
All right. So now you're gonna make me do some work, and that's gonna make this episode just a little bit longer. But I have to look up Madam Web opening weekend box office. This is something that's never been searched before. There's no oh my goodness. Okay. Based on projections, Kraven the Hunter could contend with the February misfires Madam Web $15.3 million debut.
I'm putting it at 13. That's my number.
Would you like to enter into the fray, Mr. Brody?
I'm going to say 12 million, factoring in Gladiator 2 and Wicked and Moana. I don't think there's much money left to go to the movies.
I agree.
I'm going last because I'm going to play Price is Right rules. It will make $1 at the box office. So we'll see. We'll see. That might not work for me. I think you guys are in the right range, actually.
How about we do this? We give you 10 and under, Brody could have 10 to 13, and I have 13 and up.
You just made it more confusing. So
Not
wait,
at
we're,
all.
we're we're joining Little League. We're
Yeah.
forming Little League divisions now.
Most definitely.
All right. So yeah, we have that spread right there, and I appreciate all of that. So what we want to do, and I'm not gonna lie, it's really hard to predict the next year of the Geekscape Book Club. I do want to be able to give our audience, and we'll do our best, but it's really hard to project out into the fall. There are months that I can figure out, but so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through what the first 8 books will be for the Geekscape Book Club in 2025. Now, if something comes up, we will absolutely do special episodes in between, but we will cover these 8 books in each of the months that we're talking about. And first up will be in January. We'll be having this Tom King recent Penguin run. There are some really recent books that I've chosen. This one I think is from 2023. And this came highly recommended for people that have enjoyed the Penguin series on Max. I have not finished it, but I think it's tremendous. I have enjoyed it thus far, and I look forward to seeing more. So that will be our first. And then later in February, because it'll be after the movie, we will see Captain America: Symbol of Truth, which is Sam Wilson coming back to the mantle of Captain America. So we will check that out. There are definitely a lot of choices we can have. And then this will be in March, revisiting. This is not my first rodeo with Daredevil Born Again, but I felt to coincide with the release of Daredevil Born Again, we will read the great Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli Born Again storyline from Daredevil 227 to 233, I believe. That's doing no Googling. So if it ends in 234, but I can picture the cover at 234, so I don't think that's it. So we'll read that in March. And
Twin Towers.
that's already on Brody's list since it came up on our greatest 616 stories ever. And then in March, we will spend some time with the Creature Commandos, which is now on Max. James Gunn's Creature Commandos. We talked a little bit about this. Eric and I did, though I don't know, Eric, that you had read any of it. But when we spoke to J.M. DeMatteis at the beginning of this year, and it might be a good excuse to chat with him again, because I did talk a little bit about the Creature Commandos and some of those early Creature Commando stories. You want to talk about that Marvel team up #1 being wild. There are some things that you would not have gotten past the Comics Code Authority when I was reading, let alone right now. But I think that that'll be fun for people who are enjoying the show. And in May, there were a lot of choices for Thunderbolts, but honestly, this cover and the fact that Elektra, Daredevil, and Deadpool are all part of this iteration of Thunderbolts Red it made me want to read that one. So, and then as we get towards the summer, Superman for All Seasons is recommended as the top of multiple lists for it's from Jeff Loeb ahead of that movie. And then we have what seems like a really intriguing idea, Fantastic Four life story. Each issue is a different real-time decade. So they're starting in the 60s, and we see the characters get older, which, of course, they did not get older at this pace in the comic books. But so I'm looking forward to that one. And then the final installment we have for right now is because the Ironheart series will be debuting on Disney Plus the same month, actually, as we get Superman and we get Fantastic Four. So we'll close out the summer with Ironheart, and allegedly there'll be another The Batman movie in the fall. So I can project some of what we're going to cover. It's a little hard at this moment to figure out. So that's the first 8 months of 2025. Great. And we'll do our best in our first episode in January to give relative dates on when we'll have those episodes, and we'll post this online. We'll want people to see what our books are going to be, giving you the opportunity to actually read them ahead of time. I know that can be the toughest thing about keeping tabs on this program. And Brody, you're welcome for any of those that you're interested in, and we'll open it up to some other friends. I think that Daredevil Born Again will be a pretty big one because it's such an important story. But as I'm saying, I'm very excited to read, Superman, Penguin stories that I've never even come close to reading, as I mostly read Marvel. So there's only one in there is a throwback to something I read as a kid. We try to not do too many of those, but obviously we did our Kraven's Last Hunt issue. We started off 2024 with that. And we look forward to having a fun 2025 here at the Geekscape Book Club and over there on Marvel Movie Talk, where we will have at least one Kraven episode. And if it doesn't even clear $10 million, then we might have to do daily Kraven episodes. There might just be too much to talk about.
We do a deep dive of every 10 minutes of the film.
No, we can interview everybody who went to see the movie.
You know what? That's not
one episode might do that. Actually,
I'll tell you that as I was coordinating with my friend Liam about where we were going to sit on Thursday, I accidentally clicked on Friday first. There were no seats sold for the showing on Friday. There were 0 seats.
0.0.
Yeah, I was looking at 9:50 p.m. for Friday. So if you're in the Burbank area thinking of seeing Kraven on Friday, you will have the theater to yourself.
Now, when the story is written about the Sonyverse, will the pre-sale chatter about Kraven be the thing that killed the universe, or will it have been Madam Web and Venom 3? Like, what is it they're going to look back and say that was the final straw? Was it Kraven?
I'll give you the real answer. When they started partnering with Marvel Studios for Spider-Man movies, that was the end right there.
That was the death knell, because and especially because they were so successful with Marvel, it was kind of like, all right, we obviously don't know what we're doing alone. So,
obviously, look, I long before No Way Home, I have always been an Andrew Garfield apologist, specifically for Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I found to be tremendous. And flawed, but tremendous in a lot of ways, especially for the bridge tossing scene we talked about earlier is in that film. But when that film, I'm using air quotes, only made, I think, $600 million, and it was considered a failure. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, for $600 million, you can't even sign a good outfielder in Major League Baseball these days.
Fair,
I mean,
fair.
You're not going to get anything for that, So I guess that maybe that was what the problem was. But Eric, I think you seem to agree. Is the Tom Holland showing up in Civil War and doing the partnership Spidey trilogy, which is now going to get a 4th? I think that was the end of it for Sony.
You could almost hear, like, from his first scene, like, all of a sudden it was like, this is where Spider-Man's supposed to be.
Yes.
And the second that happened, I think that, all of a sudden all these like spin-offs without him, it's like, how did they expect to survive? And I know Venom has made a tremendous amount of money for how mediocre it is. But Venom had sort of a brand awareness that Madam Web does not have, that Morbius does not have, and definitely, I mean, Kraven, maybe a little more known than those guys, but obviously it's not trending well. It
sounded like you were doing your Kurt Busiek impression there when you were talking about, it's made a lot of money, but it's really but you're not wrong, by the way.
I was aiming for 11-year-old Christian Bladt in my voice in his letter writing.
No, and Brody would not appreciate my letter to Solo Avengers, because I do believe I name checked that I was not a John Byrne fan. In one of because it was his inking era. Terry Austin made him a beautiful artist.
Terry Austin, the artist of the cover of this issue.
Oh, right? It's only Terry Austin. Wow.
If you look next to
I'm Come on, I've got my copy right here. Hello, and look at that.
Yeah.
It's disappearing.
Yeah,
my guess is, I mean, it looks like John Byrne mostly, but not. Her
Yeah,
face
but
is a little thinner than John Byrne would have done.
No,
but
you're right. Terry Austin
Yeah.
with the pencils and the inks.
I thought you'd reference that. I know you're a fan of.
No,
Mr.
I
Austin.
honestly didn't realize it until right now.
Fail.
And yeah, it's interesting. Someday, Brody will focus more time on a show about the end of the John Byrne era and how it really came over to a disagreement about what it would look like when Colossus threw a tree. And because if you look at that first page, well, it's not the first page because the recap is on the first page. It is Chris Claremont, John Byrne, writer, co-plotters, and penciler. You think Claremont liked being a co-plotter? I don't know.
You know what? I don't know. Claremont strikes me as someone who wouldn't, but boy, Byrne was such an icon at that point that if he's gonna, and I guess he agreed to it, that Byrne must have been co-plotting.
Have you ever, and we'll wind up in a second, have you ever read the Claremont Byrne run on Marvel Team Up? Which does include issue 74, which has never been reprinted, Spider-Man and the Not Ready for Primetime Players, where Stan Lee hosts Saturday Night Live and Peter and Mary Jane go to a taping of the show. It is
Garrett Morris in it?
Of course, the entire cast is in it. Yes.
Oh wow! No, I have the Avengers episode with David Letterman on the cover.
That's a good one, but you have to actually go somewhere and buy Marvel Team Up number 74. It's the deal was it would never be reprinted, so I don't even think it's available digitally. Although let's be honest, I'm pretty sure I could find it. But so the first time that I ever talked to Claremont, I was working for Dennis Miller at the time, and I was like, well, I got to ask him about this, and I don't think he gets asked about it very often. Because I was curious, and he spent, I think he and John spent a couple of weeks like hanging out at SNL, just seeing the way it goes backstage. Brody's furiously ordering this book.
Right. I got to see the cover.
Why didn't you just ask me? I know I'm slow, but
I have this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have it. John Belushi's on the cover as the samurai. Yeah, I got that. Yep.
Yeah, but I for your sake, Brody, I should point out that that's John Belushi, not Jim.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
They're actually not the same guy.
Yeah, I did make that mistake.
You've heard that before, right, Eric?
When I met Jim Belushi.
All right, well, go ahead. And
but you met Jim and you thought it was John, or you met John?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
So I was probably 17 or 18 years old, whenever 84 maybe when he was on SNL.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom took me to see a taping of David Letterman at Rockefeller Center, the late night with David Letterman. So I met Dave coming down the elevator and hung out with him for like 10 minutes talking. I met Paul Schaefer in the band. I was so excited. And then members of the SNL cast were coming by as they were going in to rehearse whatever they were doing. And I forget who went by first from that era, but at some point Jim Belushi walked by and he's maybe 10 feet in front of me walking left to right. And I go to say hi. And again, I'm a kid, I'm excited. And I was like, oh, that's Jim. Nope, that's his brother. Hey, John. And he went, and as I said it, I went, fuck, in my mind, because I knew I'd fucked up. Oh. And he turned and went, as he's walking, he went, I'm not John. And he kept walking. And I just looked at my mom and she's like, it's okay. Just, it happens. Don't,
Yeah.
It was my big celebrity blunder because I knew it was, I was like, oh, that's his brother. Don't say, but I switched the names in my head.
Yeah. But
no.
he would go on to be Mr. Destiny.
I was about to say, when you saw Mr. Destiny, did a single tear fall down your face as you thought about what could have been?
Well,
yeah. I mean, listen, he certainly never rose to the heights. But
on that cheery note, let's thank everyone for the support in a tremendous year for the Geekscape Book Club. And I want everyone to have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and we, of course, want people to have a Happy Kwanzaa and Winter Solstice. And I don't know what Scientology
Falcon and
has,
the Winter Solstice.
But whatever. But whatever Xenu celebrates, if you're a level 7 Thetan, or let's say level 5 and above, however Xenu blesses you in the new year, and we will see everyone in 2025 for the Geekscape Book Club. But make sure that you smash that like, y'all, and subscribe to the Geekscape YouTube channel, and you will get our Craven specials before the new year. And Marvel Movie Talk will be back in January talking about season 3 of What If. So thank you guys for that. Mr. Brody, if people want more, where do they find more of you?
Well, you can find me on the Brooklyn Boys podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and on most social media at David Brody, DAVIDBRODY.
And Mr. Conner, in addition to being prominently featured on Marvel Movie Talk, occasionally on the Bladt, and a regular here on the Geekscape Book Club, where else can you be found?
Well, go find me over at socials, Insta, and yes, I'm still at X. Sorry, I'll get out of there soon. But that's Count Eric Conner, ERICCONNER. Good holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, be healthy, wealthy, and wise, and all that other crap.
And you can find me at Christian DMZ, and I'm still on Twitter for a very simple reason. I have 4,000 followers on there, and nowhere near that much on anything else. So they can turn the lights on. I'll still be there, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I've got like 3 followers on Blue Sky, but I'm also Christian DMZ over there. If anybody wants to bring the conversation over there, I referenced it. You can find my personal podcast, The Blackcast, BLADTCAST, Tuesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, over on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel. We do Who Are These Broadcasters. This Tuesday will be our Christmas celebration with our buddy Don Jameson coming by and looking at some recent interviews with Gene Simmons. And of course, if that intrigues you, perhaps you'll want to check out 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal, the podcast that I pitched, co-created, and produced with Metal Blade Records CEO Brian Slagle. And that show is also available wherever you find an audio podcast. And Don Jameson was on that show this week. If you are a metalhead, we had Kerry King from Slayer 2 weeks ago talking about Black Magic. So find that. It's a weekly show, and the edict from the company is that it needs to be 45 minutes or under. So it's literally the most difficult project I've ever been involved in, but it's also a lot of fun. So check that out. That's all the time we have for now, but we'll see you talking Craven. As the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior. And as long as they keep writing them, we'll keep reading them.